In the annals of history there are bizarre tales that challenge the limits of our understanding. One such tale is the enigma of the dancing plague. This isn't a misnomer or a fanciful title, it's the stark reality of a peculiar event that occurred in the year 1518 in the city of Strasbourg. Imagine, if you will, the bustling city of Strasbourg in the early 16th century, a vibrant hub nestled in the heart of the Holy Roman Empire. The city was a veritable melting pot of cultures, its streets echoing with the chatter of diverse languages. It was a time of relative peace, yet also a time of tension. The grip of the Renaissance was just beginning to loosen, and the Reformation was quietly gathering momentum. Amidst this backdrop of cultural and political flux, the people of Strasbourg went about their daily lives, oblivious to the strange spectacle that was about to descend upon them. The dancing plague, also known as the Dance of Death, is a phenomenon that has puzzled historians and medical experts alike for centuries. It started with just one woman, Frau Trophäa, who began to dance fervently in the streets without any apparent reason. Her dancing wasn't the joyous expression of a festive spirit or the result of a merry frolic. Instead, it was a relentless, seemingly involuntary movement that continued for days, then weeks. The city's inhabitants watched with a mix of intrigue and horror as Frau Trophäa danced on, her body swaying to a rhythm only she could hear. Her feet bled, her body ached, yet she danced on as if possessed by some unseen force. But little did they know this was only the prelude, the true horror was yet to come. So here we stand on the precipice of a tale that is as bewildering as it is terrifying. A tale that transcends the boundaries of time and reason, a tale of a city caught in the grip of a plague unlike any other. In this seemingly ordinary setting, a most extraordinary event was about to unfold. It started with one woman, Frau Trophäa, who began to dance fervently on the streets of Strasbourg. In the heart of the city, in the sweltering heat of July, a peculiar spectacle took place. Frau Trophäa, an ordinary woman by all accounts, began to dance. But this was no ordinary dance. It was a dance of fervor, of frenzy, of desperation. With wild abandon, she stomped on the cobblestones, twirled in circles, and leaped in the air. Her feet moved with an energy that defied human endurance, and her face was twisted with an expression that was somewhere between joy and agony. The people of Strasbourg were at first amused, then perplexed, and finally alarmed. This was no celebratory jig or a performance for coins. This was something else, something unsettling. As the hours turned into days, Frau Trophäa continued her relentless dance. Her feet bled, her clothes were soaked with sweat, yet she seemed unable to stop. The townsfolk watched in horror and bewilderment as their attempts to understand and contain the situation proved futile. They tried to restrain her, to console her, to reason with her. But Frau Trophäa danced on, oblivious to the growing crowd and their concern. Physicians were called, priests were summoned. They watched, they prayed, they theorized, but they could not stop the dance. Rumors began to spread, whispers of witchcraft, of demonic possession, of a curse that had befallen the town. Some believed that Frau Trophäa was being punished for her sins. Others thought she was the victim of a cruel prank by mischievous spirits. But amidst the fear and confusion, one thing was clear. This was no ordinary event. This was a mystery, a riddle that defied explanation, a dance of despair that held an entire town captive. In the face of this inexplicable phenomenon, the people of Strasbourg could only watch and wonder. They could not foresee that this was merely the first act of a strange and terrifying play. They could not predict the madness that was about to engulf their town. Little did they know, this was only the beginning. As days turned into weeks, the dancing fever didn't subside, instead it spread. The dancing plague was like a contagion, a wildfire that swept through the city. People from all walks of life, from young children to the elderly, found themselves caught in its grip, their bodies bending and twisting in a relentless dance. This was no joyful celebration, no festive jig. It was a dance of torment, a spectacle of human suffering. Hundreds joined in, their numbers swelling with each passing day. The city streets were filled with the eerie spectacle of people dancing, their faces etched with pain and despair. As the epidemic spread, the physical toll it took on the people became increasingly apparent. Exhaustion set in, as the afflicted danced day and night, unable to stop, unable to rest. Their bodies were racked with fatigue, their feet bloody and blistered, yet they danced on, compelled by a force they could neither understand nor resist. But the dance was not just a physical torment, it was a dance of death. People began to collapse, their exhausted bodies unable to keep up with the relentless rhythm. Some fell into a deep sleep from which they never woke up, their hearts simply giving out from the strain. Others succumbed to strokes or heart attacks, their bodies unable to withstand the relentless strain. The streets became a macabre tableau of death and despair as the dance claimed its victims. And through it all, the dance continued, unabated, unstoppable. The city was in a state of panic, the authorities powerless to stop the spread of the dancing plague. People lived in fear, never knowing if they would be the next to be consumed by the dance. The city was in the grip of a dancing plague, a phenomenon as terrifying as it was inexplicable. A dance of death, a dance of despair, a dance that threatened to consume the entire city. A dance that was as mysterious as it was deadly, a dance that for many would prove to be their last. In the face of this inexplicable crisis, the authorities had to respond. Imagine the scene. A city in chaos, streets filled with people dancing themselves to exhaustion, fear and confusion spreading faster than the plague itself. The authorities, akin to a ship lost in a tempest, were forced to navigate through a sea of uncertainty, with no compass to guide them. With no understanding of the situation, they found themselves grasping at straws. A decision was made, one that, in hindsight we can see, was a desperate attempt to regain control. They ordered more dancing. It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? But in a world where logic had seemingly abandoned them, they hoped that the very act that was causing the chaos could also be its cure. They believed in the old saying, fight fire with fire. They thought that by encouraging the afflicted to dance, they could exhaust the plague out of them. So, professional dancers and musicians were brought in, stages were erected, and the city was transformed into a grand ballroom under the open sky. The rhythmic beats of drums echoed through the city, intended to be a siren call to the plague, to lure it out and banish it once and for all. But alas, the plan backfired. Instead of quelling the dancing plague, the authorities had unknowingly provided it with a grand stage to thrive. The music, the dancers, the spectacle, it all served as fuel, exacerbating the condition. The dance of despair turned into a frenzied whirl, a spectacle of human suffering unlike any other. The plague, instead of being curtailed, spread like wildfire. Every beat of the drum, every strum of the lute, every pirouette seemed to draw more people into its deadly dance. The city's desperate attempt to regain control had spiraled into a carnival of chaos. Their attempts to quell the plague only served to fan its flames. Centuries later, the dancing plague of 1518 remains an enigma, but theories abound. From the hallowed halls of academia to the bustling chat rooms of the internet, countless minds have tried to unravel this puzzle. One theory proposes mass hysteria, a collective emotional frenzy, as the culprit. The stress of the time, marked by famine and disease, could have triggered a community-wide psychological break, manifesting in ceaseless dancing. Another theory points to ergot poisoning. Ergot is a fungus that grows on rye and wheat, staples of the Strasbourg diet in the 1500s. Ingesting it can lead to hallucinations and convulsions, symptoms eerily similar to the victim's uncontrollable dancing. Yet some propose spiritual or supernatural causes. Perhaps it was a divine punishment, a demonic possession, or a curse from a scorned individual. Despite these theories, the dancing plague retains its shroud of mystery. The dance may have stopped, but the quest for answers continues. Eventually, the dancing plague came to a halt as abruptly as it began. After weeks of relentless movement, the dancers began to slow, their bodies succumbing to the sheer exhaustion. One by one they stopped their dance, their feet finally still after the inexplicable marathon of movement. The city, once filled with the eerie spectacle of the dancing masses, fell silent. The aftermath was profound. The city streets, once bustling with life, were now a reminder of the bizarre event that had gripped their town. The people, wearied from the spectacle, had a newfound appreciation for the quiet stillness of their everyday lives. The dancing plague left a lasting impact on the city and its people, a poignant reminder of the fragility of human life and the strange mysteries that can suddenly disrupt the ordinary. In the end, the dancing plague serves as a testament to the strange and unexplained phenomena that history presents us with.